Hey, welcome back to More Than Sports. We're doing part 2 of John chapter 21. Last week we got into that the disciples went fishing after the resurrection. They hadn't caught any fish all night. Jesus, the guy on the shore, says, "Have you caught any fish?" They said no. We talked last week that we need to be honest. If God's going to give us the next direction, He wants us to be honest about where we are, because our faith and our hope says, I'm going someplace. I got something going on. So at this point, Jesus responds. He says, "Have you caught any fish?" They've been fishing all night long. They're professional fishermen. He says, "Have you caught any fish?" They said no. Now remember, this is just a guy on the shore. They don't know who it is. He says to them, what does he say? He says, "Throw your nets on the right side of the boat." I love this. I love it so much. He says, "Throw your nets on the right side of the boat." Now, if you've seen or familiar with some of that era, a couple thousand years ago, the fishing boats they used in Galilee, they're pretty small boats. There's one you see at a museum if you go over to the Sea of Galilee, and it's pretty old. I think it's about the time of Jesus, and it's a small boat. Not very wide. And so what I want you to see is the left side of the boat compared to the right side of the boat is not that far. It's maybe 5 feet. Let's exaggerate and say 10 feet. So they're fishing on the left side of the boat. The guy on the shore, Jesus, says, "Throw your nets on the right side of the boat," which is just like from here to there. Now, think about this. The boat is moving. The current is moving. Fish are moving. It's not like all the fish are sitting there looking at the net saying, "Whoa, as long as we stay over here, we'll never get caught." And it's not like you throw your nets there and the fish are like, "Oh, rats, they got us." It's really such an issue of what were the disciples thinking at this point. What were they thinking? I can tell you what they were thinking. They were thinking, we don't have any fish. We're pretty desperate. We're going to try what this guy says. I love that, because when we get to that point where we so much want to hear from God, we'll even do something that seems ridiculously simple. A lot of the times the things that maybe the ideas God gives you, and this can work in business, this can work in your family, this can work in ministry, works in everything. But a lot of times the idea, the next that He gives you, is not necessarily the most complicated. We think, he should say, "Hey, go buy this really expensive pole," or "You need to get a new boat, get a great big $20,000 boat. That'll make you fish good." We would like that. Or if he said, you got to get the best bait, or we got to do that. No. He gave them something they could do, and they could do pretty much right then and there. Throw the net on the right side of the boat. Wow. And they did it. But here's what I want you to see. I want you to hear this too. Remember, they didn't know it was Jesus, so it's just a guy on the shore. We learn at the end he's about 100 yards away. To hear from God, you need to be listening. I want you to get that. Book of Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 20 says basically, wisdom is crying out in the streets. She lets her voice be heard in the crowded, busy, noisy streets, meaning wisdom is speaking, but not many are hearing. I want you to get that. Wisdom is speaking in the crowded streets. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of people there. What does it mean? There's a lot of people that could be hearing wisdom, but it also means there's a lot of voices around, and so most people aren't hearing wisdom. So in a crowded street, you don't hear what everybody's saying. You hear what you're listening to. Get this carefully. If we want to hear from God, we got to be listening to God. We need to be quiet. We need to take time and think. We need to take time and put ourselves in a position where we can hear Jesus asking us questions, where we can hear Jesus asking us and giving us strategies. We've got to be in a place where we are listening in the middle of a crowded, noisy world. We've got to be listening and hearing what God says, what his word says. We've got to. It's not going to be shouted at us and shaken to us. We've got to be listening. Sometimes if you want to do something strange, just sit someplace. Go there and sit. Don't look at your phone. Don't talk to anybody. Don't read anything. Don't watch anything. Just sit. Sit. It's a strange thing. It doesn't happen much in our culture anymore. It used to happen all the time. People used to sit on their front porch. What did they do? They sat on their front porch. What did they do? They sat on their front porch. And when you just sit, you can hear. You can think clearly. You can get other voices out of your head, and you can hear the voice of God. And so get to where you're listening, because he's going to give you your right side of the boat. He's going to give you your right side of the boat. And it's not going to be the same as what he tells other people. So don't be looking to copy what somebody else did. We should be learning from people all the time. But just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. If you're involved in church ministry, just because some other church did it and it's working for them doesn't mean you should be doing it or that it's going to work for you. Why? Because Jesus wants to speak to you on your right side of the boat. He wants to give you strategy. We work with people all over the world who are having really successful things happen in ministry. And I can tell you, it's not a pattern you just follow. There's things that God speaks to them. We're involved. Praise God, we're involved with it, and we're helping people hear from God and how to do strategies. But hear from God for you. I had a number of years ago. I sat with some big shot leaders in the Christian faith, and they were over me, and we were sitting. He said, "Tell the story of how your church started," and it's a cool story. And so I went back and went over we were probably 25 years or so into ministry at that time, and I gave them a 25-year history, and it's a wild story. And this is what they said to me, and I loved it. They said, "Wow, that's incredible." It says, and they said it kind of tongue-in-cheek, a little bit jokingly. They said, "Do us a favor. Don't tell anybody how to start and how to grow a church, because what you did can't be copied." And I love that, because that's what our lives should be like. We shouldn't just be buying books on how to parent kids and then follow the book, chapter 1, chapter 2. It's fine. Learn all you want. Learn everything. But I'm telling you, when you're out there and you've got your own 2-year-old, you better be able to hear from God. Because what somebody else did isn't going to work with your kid. When you're out there in the business world, are there books on business? Of course. Should you learn them? Of course. But is there a book written about you and your business today? Nope. So you better also be hearing from God, and you better be paying attention, and don't just copy what somebody else is doing. It worked for them. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Be an original when it comes to things. Learn everything. Learn everything. Go to school, go to trainings, read books, learn it all. But in the middle of all your learning, make sure you're primarily learning how to hear wisdom that comes from God. Make sure in the middle of the crowded streets, you're hearing wisdom. Make sure 100 yards offshore, you're hearing somebody say, "Throw the net on the right side of the boat." And it might be the simplest thing. And imagine if you went to your board meeting or your corporate meeting or whatever, and they said, "Okay, what's your new plan on fishing?" And you said, "You know what? I think we need to throw the net on the right side of the boat." And they would say, "Are you kidding me? That's what you came up with? We sent you out to get an MBA or a PhD in ministry or an MDiv, and you came up with throw the net on the right side of the boat?" Listen, hear from God. Doesn't have to be complicated. But when he speaks, at the moment that he speaks it, when we obey, which we're going to get into that next week, when we obey, the results are His, and they might be amazing. And so hear from God, listen to Him, listen carefully, don't be drowned out by the rest of the world, and ask God for your right side of the boat. Ask Him for it now. Ask Him for it today. What's my today right side of the boat? Ask Him for it. He wants to speak, and He wants to speak to you. God bless you so much. Appreciate you taking the time and being with us. And I'm telling you, I'm rooting for you in life and in ministry, because there's something God has for you that's amazing. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. At the International Sports Academy, we have been very blessed and fortunate. We are a discipleship ministry, and we, of course, use sports, but the heart of it is to help people grow in their life and in their walk with Jesus. And so teachings like this, we have all over the world. In fact, many people watch teachings online just as you are. And so if you're encouraged by these and would like to share these with literally thousands of others, maybe they're from the slums, or they're from the bush, or they're from places where they don't have access to teachings, we're able to get in there and to encourage them in the Word of God. So if you are blessed by that, and you have a heart for making disciples all over the world and getting good, solid Bible teachings, feel free to join in financially. You can go to isasports.org/give, and all of that would just really go to really blessing thousands and thousands of people. So thank you so much for your partnership, and look forward to seeing you next time we teach.